up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee, and I have a really special guest here with me. And I've been asking Michael to come up here. Michael Arceneaux is here, author of I Finally Bought Some Jordans.
You have. Thank you for having me.
Can I say New York Times best-selling author, because you have other books that and I love your books.
Yes.
I can't date.
Why I'm a New York Times best-selling author, so thank you.
Really?
Yeah, y'all gave a boost.
I Can't Date Jesus, and I Don't Want to Die Poor.
Yes.
And I Can't Date Jesus, that was a controversial title at the time, I remember, because people would be like, oh, well, what is this about?
Yes, I remember, it's funny, I did a behind the bar, Watch What Happens Live, and one of the cast members, Dr. Jackie, was one of the guests, and when she heard the title, I could see her face light up. And I was
Jesus.
I was like, no, I'm not a heathen. So yes, that was kind of the reaction. But if you read it, it was sort of based on a conversation I had with my mom, that it was really meant in the best way. We love the Lord.
And this is a trilogy of books that you've done, right?
It is a trilogy, yeah.
Okay, and I noticed that you did an article in the LA Times, an interview there, and you had said you thought this would end on a more upbeat note.
Yeah, so I know a lot of people don't want to talk about the plague the last 4 years, but I realized in writing it that the pandemic impacted me a lot more than I thought I did. And as I write in the book, I lost a really good friend, Brian, brain cancer. I lost a friend to suicide. I lost an uncle. I lost a lot of friends and family. So I was a lot more impacted by grief than I realized. So it was just hard to want to talk about all of that when I normally am kind of even if I write about things that are harder to kind of read about, I try to be funny and lighthearted about it. But it's only so lighthearted you can be about grief. And while writing the book that I struggled to write, when I finally felt like I got it together, literally the day I met with my editor, Rakesh, I was like, I'm back on it. We're going to get it together. Literally 10 minutes after I saw him, I got a call from my mom telling me that she was diagnosed with cancer. This was last March. She passed away in October. So, the book is really, and even the promo run and where I'm at right now is just kind of really framed by that. I would say the book is still funny. I would like to think. I was worried I wasn't funny anymore, but some people were like, no, it's dark, but you're still there.
Well, definitely in the beginning, I feel like the funny moments. So let's start with the beginning part. And I won't give away too much of the book, but there are some people that have you blocked that you really love, like Toni Braxton and Jhene Aiko. Both have you blocked.
I'm trying to get unblocked by both
And you're
of them.
trying to get unblocked. And it's interesting because in the beginning, and this is so true, right? Because, I work in radio, and so there might be things that I say that could be offensive to people as you're reporting on a story or giving your opinion, depending on how sensitive somebody is, or if they watch the whole thing or just a snippet of it. Sometimes it's hard for people to get the full story. But there have been a few situations where things that you have written about people have actually come back to a point where you've had to just so you know, I've written about you before.
Bevy Smith, we love Bevy, warned me years ago that, one day you're going to be in rooms with people that you talk about. So I want you to be aware of that. And I was like, I never threw it off, but, I function as a critic for the most part, or I have been in the years past. And a lot of people don't like criticism as much as they make it seem. I think kind of criticism in general is like a dying art form. And so for me, in the first case of the first two books, they both had been adapted, or they were optioned to be adapted for TV. So in each instance, it was someone that reached out to me that I wrote very critically about. So I was actually surprised that they were interested.
Meeting with you?
Yeah, for example, with Lee Daniels. Initially, I worked with Lee Daniels and Gerard Carmichael. I was working with them on a TV adaptation of I Can't Date Jesus. It's in another direction now. It's still going, though, thankfully.
Isn't it crazy how long it takes stuff to get done?
Oh, I am being hazed. I think every field I try to work in feels like a hazing process.
Just for people listening, when did these meetings initially with Lee Daniels and Gerard Carmichael take place initially?
Gerard was actually, it was about maybe 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks after the book came out. So that was 6 years ago.
Sheesh.
Maybe 2 weeks literally into the book being out. The second book got optioned actually the same summer. Kevin Hart's company, Heartbeat, I worked with. I don't that poor adaptation. It was at HBO Max before it went away last year because they have new owners, new priorities, and as you've noticed, it's less darker people projects moving along. So we're gonna pray about that. Now I sound like Dr. Heavenly, but that was even like the last meeting I had. It was like right before the plague started, and so that was 2020. But in each instance, like with Lee Daniels, he was like, "You talked about me, bitch," and I was like, "Yes."
Yes.
I actually raised my hand. Like I was like, "I just want to tell you, I talked about you." And
because you'd rather tell somebody.
I would rather tell you than not.
And you find out, and then you're like, "Oh."
And I was like, "I could pull it right now if you want." He respected that. He said I was a doll to a mutual friend, which is like the best compliment I feel like an elder can give. Yes. And I wasn't with Kevin Hart directly, but his people that ran TV. I was like, this meeting is lovely, but just so y'all know, I'm not a fake ass bitch. I talked about Kevin.
Right.
But they knew.
Right. And the issue you had with Kevin was him not immediately saying, I'm sorry for some of his gay jokes that he had previously.
Because I will say one thing I notice about certain people, like, you know a lot about somebody, even based on how they do interactions. I noticed even when Kevin entered office, he shook everybody's hand that he saw. So to me, that's just about character. But what I wrote about the time was that I was like, you kind of keep saying you've apologized already, but if you actually kind of look at what's out there, there's never been an actual apology. And so this would all kind of go away if you're just like more clear about it, which I actually saw maybe a week ago. He did acknowledge in some interview. So it didn't come from a bad place, because believe me, I have lit some people up, but I didn't really like, even with Lee, it wasn't like, I don't like you. It was like, it was just what I was trying to say in that instance was like, I don't think Black people are more homophobic than any other group, which is like something that keeps being perpetuated. Just statistically, it's not true. And I think there's something to be said about kind of checking Black people about their homophobia, but not branding us as like the boogeyman of it. So I think once I could just tell them face to face, they got what I meant and received it. In the case of Toni Braxton, I've never had that opportunity. It's just
so
like a block.
Yeah, you don't even really know what you could have possibly said. You're trying to figure it out.
Yes. So I used to be an active, very active Twitter user.
And you love reality TV.
I do.
Much like me.
Yes. And I just used to tweet about Braxton family values. So I used to have names for some of them, and playful, but maybe not. I used to call one of them Mountie Braxton because she was from Baltimore but sounded like she was from Canada. I said one looked like Yolanda Adams' face. I called her Yolanda Adams' face Braxton because she looked just like Yolanda Adams, who is a beauty. And then I said one, Tracy, may she rest, Left Behind Braxton, only because that was a plot line.
She kept saying that,
yes, which she actually followed me.
Right.
Because I liked her music. I was like, no, Tracy has some hits. Like, y'all should actually listen. Don't, like, this is the last call. She's there. Toni, though, I never even said nothing about Toni Braxton. I might have said once, she's like the Suge Avery of R&B.
But you didn't think that was an insult in any way.
Who would want to be the Suge Avery of R&B? I don't know. But blocked. Like blocked.
I wonder when that happened. Sheesh.
I was trying to promote her single, and it was like, oh, you can't tag her. Nope. And
you said you're a fan, like you're of all her music. Hopefully somebody can let Toni Braxton, if y'all could all just tag her.
Please.
And be like, please, unblock Young Cynic.
Before puberty stole my singing dreams, I used to write fake Babyface songs at like 8. I love Toni Braxton. Like, I used to write fake Babyface songs. I used to be singing my little heart out. Shout out to my sister for encouraging me. Mom was like, you better go put that down and go study.
This is before your voice changed.
Yeah, and then it was over. The dream was over. And I never got in the studio to be a rapper, so.
But you're still a fan. Even with Jhene Aiko, you're still a fan of hers.
Yes.
Even though you don't know why you're blocked.
My suspicion is I was misquoted and she might have searched her name. Because I don't even at people.
Right.
Like,
anymore.
I don't like to at. No, actually.
Well, you said hashtag.
Yeah, I use the hashtag. The only time I really at you is if you actually at me. Because some of those reality stars search their names.
Yeah, they
and
do.
like to get buck at you. And I don't usually believe in arguing back and forth, but back then I kind of would a little bit.
I think it's interesting when people do that. Like, I remember there was an author who came on when I was on The Breakfast Club, did the interview, and then afterwards she was like ripping The Breakfast Club. But then she came back on for her next book. And I'm like, you just said what a terrible platform this is, how awful it is. But then you came on and did another interview.
See, I don't like that kind of thing.
I thought that was wild. I was like, okay, miss.
Because if you feel the way and you're actually fortunate enough to be in that position, say it directly. You'd be surprised depending on how you convey the message. But Jhene, I think I was at an event where they gave me and the other panelists alcohol to talk about R&B.
You got a little tipsy.
And maybe that wine had me... All I was trying to say was that her voice wasn't like Sade. Like, I'm a big Sade fan. Mm-hmm. I was trying to make a maybe more nuanced point than like red wine allowed at the time. So
you said Sade had a fuller
voice. That's it. That was it. And I actually admit in the book, I was actually a little wrong about Jhene's voice, so my bad. But I'm a fan. And once again, I was trying to do pre-promo. And I'm like, oh, she blocked me. I'm like, oh, no. And honestly, Jhene has helped me go to sleep since the plague started because she put me onto sound bowls and all of that kind of music. Like, unblock me, girl.
So, yeah, or maybe you just need to start a Finsta account so you can follow all these people.
Yes.
and see what's going on since you're blocked.
But it's all right. I still buy both their... I actually still buy music. See, it's like, you don't block people who still buy music.
Right, you shouldn't.
I'm vintage in that way.
Well, people do get sensitive, though, about their craft, so they may misinterpret things. And some people are not good at handling criticism either.
No, they're not, which is, again, why I didn't at them, but I realized, okay, maybe I just don't mention their name anymore.
Have you ever been mad about something that somebody said about you? Or, like, had a grudge against somebody because they said something about your writing, your opinion?
No. As a critic, if I'm criticizing people publicly, I have to be receptive to criticism. And usually, if it's really well done criticism, it's something I can pull from. Sometimes, though, you can also tell when somebody's just being bitchy. So I kind of just dismiss it. Or you kind of understand that the lens in which they review you, is it like in some cases, like someone I saw review this book was like, I don't care what he thinks about Donald Trump and yada, yada, yada. It should be more personal. But I'm also like, well, because a lot of y'all don't value Black political opinions anyway, unless it kind of just reinforces what you already think. So that might be it. But usually, no. The only people I hold grudges about people who might have actually professionally sabotage me. But even that, I try to let go. I'm trying to be zen now in my own little way.
Okay, good for you.
Yes. The little face of doubt because you know me.
I mean, all right. And I finally bust some Jordans. You know what I noticed is a theme throughout this book? Mm-hmm. Housing.
Yes.
Housing issues for you. And, you could not wait to get out of New York. And I remember when you were here, you kept being like, I'm moving.
Yes.
And I'm going to go to Houston. But you also were planning to be in L.A.
Yeah.
That was ultimately the goal.
Yes. I decided instead of going immediately to L.A., that I wanted to spend some time in Houston to honestly be around my mom and my family more. This is way before any of this stuff happened, because that all happened really honestly so fast. But I'm really glad that I did that because it allowed me, it's time I'll never get back. Mm-hmm. I got to see my mom during a really difficult time. A lot of people didn't get to see their folks. Now, she did try to recruit me to stay in Houston because it was so much cheaper. And you could buy a house with what I pay in rent and all this stuff. And I was like, well, I don't know if I really want a house yet. I definitely don't know if I want a house here.
Right. You don't know how long you'll be there.
Yeah. And then with LA, it was like, if I'm going to be overcharged in rent, at least the space will be a little bit better.
And now you go hiking.
I go hiking now. I love a pop hike.
How has that helped you as far as being more zen-like?
Well, it's been challenged by the last year or so I'm not that zen as I'd like to be. But I do think I'm more chill generally in LA. And in hindsight, going there and still having difficult times has actually helped me because it allows me to go outside more than I normally would. And I know I sound like down to the LA cliche, but yeah, I actually think it's just been good for me so far. I don't really miss living in New York per se, but I do think maybe I miss parts of how I worked.
Okay.
Because you move faster here.
Yeah, definitely.
And I do miss you. Like, I miss certain friends that I know I've seen you in LA, but like, I have not been back in 4 years. So I'm working on that part.
Okay, good. Please.
Yeah,
and I mean, let's talk about your first apartment in Harlem.
Yes.
When you were living in Harlem. That sounded like a nightmare. But you said in retrospect, when you think back, it wasn't as bad as it... Yeah.
My friends tell me that. I don't know. I have a chapter called Drunk Millie Jackson. Shout out to my late neighbor, well, not late neighbor, my old neighbor. She used to wake me up in the middle of the night, always drunk, arguing with her man, who she said she was going to leave but never did. That was just an interesting apartment all around. At one point, it was like a VH1 reality star living there. And then I realized one time I was binging something, I was like, wait.
She lives in my building.
Yes. It was one of the, I think it was Black Ink Crew. It was one of the ones that wasn't like all that nice, no shade. So I don't remember the name, but like I remember that. I remember because I like to speak.
Yeah.
It was a little stank. So that's all I remember. Loud people and stank, yes, in a tiny space. But we're grateful that I had it. Otherwise, I wouldn't.
And then you got locked down in Harlem, so you didn't get to leave. And the pandemic was a really tough time for a lot of people. But it felt like you were definitely like masked up, not trying to do anything wrong except get a haircut.
Yes.
And look at your hair today, okay?
I actually needed to get it cleaned up a little bit for you, but we holding on.
Shining.
So it's like I'm holding on to my hair for dear life, and I just feel like for me, I need to, especially when I'm sad, at least if I feel like a bad bitch, I can get through the day. And with that, when the plague started, my book had just come out. Stores weren't open. I couldn't do like this bigger tour.
You were doing Zooms though.
It was just Zooms and sadness with this my little apartment and like the little brick in the back. Shout out to the brick, it helped. That's all I had. So I was like, I'm gonna get this haircut. That's all I got.
You said people thought you cut your own hair, and he was just like,
I was like, I didn't respond. I don't lie, but I was like, I'm glad you believe in me that much. But no,
they cut your own hair.
No, if I did, it'd be like over here, over there. It'd be
but it's interesting how small things like that can make a big difference in how you feel about yourself. Like it just feels awful when you don't have a haircut. You know how I feel when my nails aren't done. It bothers me so much. Like, I'll be looking at my nails like, oh my God, I really, like, it just, a little thing like going to get my nails done could like change my whole.
Yeah, there have been moments when I've like had barely any money, but I will go get a fade because I just feel like one of my friends back home, Kim, was like, you even work better when you have a haircut. I was like, you're right, because I want to keep getting them.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, but the haircuts actually helped me get through that whole promotional cycle, which was so strange. Because I was actually talking to you on Zoom too.
Yeah.
Yeah, defending the fact that the book deal I got. I was like, I ain't negotiated that. Not with you, but yes.
Well, listen, I also want to talk to you about something interesting that you said in the book was about learning how to be able to cry.
Yes.
And let that go, you know? And I think that's an important thing to do because sometimes we feel like we have to be so strong all the time.
Yeah.
And crying is like a sign of weakness, you know?
Yeah. I try not to sound like one of those problematic men who say like, I don't cry. But I didn't, I learned to cry in the book and it's actually been helpful because, I'm sorry, I cried this morning. It was supposed to be a celebratory day, but I'm like, I miss my mom. And I'd rather at least get it out than not. Because I think one thing that I'm learning, you know, a lot of people have just kind of ignored the pandemic and all that loss. And I get it. But I noticed that even that kind of mindset has been applied to my grief, even well-meaning people like, be happy. She wants you to be happy, this, that, and the other. Right. And it's like, well, you know, my mom died like 4 months ago. And that was my lifeline in my heart. She informed so much of my work, who I am as a person, how I want to treat people. So I'm not going to pretend that I'm not carrying that pain with me. Yeah. And I don't want to talk in a way that makes other people feel more comfortable because I know grief is hard for other people to be around and all of that. So I respect it. But at the same time, it's like, I have to be honest and honestly stick to what I wrote in the book. I need to be honest about where I'm at. And I didn't want to like fold up or make myself into somebody I'm not or a feeling that I don't really have because I don't think that would serve me any purpose. And I honestly think it would be antithetical to what I try to get across in my books, which is just to be open and honest about the stuff that's bothering you. And hopefully my sadness and my grief or whatever will help people deal with theirs or inform people how to treat other folks who are dealing with it or just provide like an escape, you know? So yeah, I'm a big believer in crying now because I think maybe it's a lot to cry about. And yeah, hopefully I'm crying a lot less sooner, but I think that'll come too.
I think anybody who loses their mom would cry, like, even at random times when you don't expect it. I can't even imagine, and it's still fresh. Yeah. And so I can't even imagine, like, even just thinking about it will make me sad, you know? Yeah,
it does. I've actually, I felt bad that when I've been doing press, that I've made some of the people interviewing me tear up. And I'm like, oh no, I'm sorry. They're like, no, it's just and I'm like, no, don't cry. I'm like, I almost called me. Yeah, it's been interesting, but I appreciate that. Yeah.
What is like your dad? Did he read this book?
No, my dad doesn't read my books, and it's fine. Does he know my book out today?
Oh my gosh. So not even the other 2 books he hasn't read?
No, honestly, I don't. My mom never actually read my first book, which I was fine with because at the time that was more of a touchier subject. But I do know my aunts read it, and they said that I was honest but respectful, which is literally the best thing you could hear from that.
Because you're always very clear. I love my dad. Like, I love him so much, but there's a lot of flaws.
Yes.
And baggage there, too.
Yeah. My dad doesn't really, consume stuff that way. So it's like, I talk to him, I check on him. He doesn't really read. I actually, if I'm not mistaken, it's funny, I'm pretty sure he knew that I wrote a book. Not that my mom had already told him, but he knew more about it because I think one of his homeboys that always stops by saw me on The Breakfast Club. He's like, oh, yo, Big Mike on The Breakfast Club. Yeah. So he hit me about that. But no, he didn't read it. My mom has read a lot of my work, though.
Okay.
She just, which to be fair, I was like, I don't know if I would want to read my child's failed sexual whatever. I wouldn't want to read that either.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, this book was not about that at all, though. So I can see, yeah.
Kind of dry city. On that front.
He's celibate?
Not celibate, no.
The pandemic was definitely a time of and the way that things were going down.
Yeah, there was one instance where I was so worried. I'm like, dang, do I need to wear a mask? It just got too confusing. No, I was serious. I was like, they gonna kill me. Not that way.
But yeah, so back to your father, because I feel like he would want to just know what it is that you have to say, especially if your aunts read it. Like, they don't have discussions in the family about anything.
No, which is why I'm glad I learned to cry and write books.
Right.
We don't.
My family's like that too, though. They listen to stuff that I do, and they listen to my podcast, Lip Service, but they won't say anything to me about it. Like, my dad will say something to my mom, but he won't ever say anything
that feels
to
right.
me.
I do think my mom might have read more stuff than I think.
And not say anything to you about it.
My dad, I don't think that happens, but I'm pretty sure my dad, in his way, is informed. Because I will say, it's not that we couldn't talk about some of that stuff, but just because I tried even recently. I just think, which is what I kind of write about in the book. I write about, a lot of people, you don't know how much, not to be all morbid again, but I just think, a lot of us are dying sooner.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us are getting cancer or whatever younger. You honestly just don't know how much time you have left. And I think sometimes people want to have these kind of binaries and people and with my mom, it's like you either accept or you don't. It's sometimes there's a middle gray. And then towards the end, my mom was a lot more accepting. It just took time, which is a testament to real love. With my dad, I think, there are certain subjects and topics that I think, and I don't want to say this in a demeaning way, I just think some people are incapable of having certain types of conversations with you and reaching certain conclusions, and you're not necessarily going to get what you want out of them. Mm-hmm. So what I try to write about is that in spite of knowing that, I try to maintain relationships and communication as best I can, and hopefully something changes. But if not, just as a child, I'm trying to maintain something, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I don't think we're ever going to have that moment where he admits a lot of things. Right. In fact, since recently, I kind of know. But we love each other, and we're all doing our best. Mm-hmm. So I just try to meet him where I'm at. Even if sometimes as I write, it's kind of not mindless conversation, but it's just very surface.
Right.
That's actually changed a little bit since my mom, but I can feel it swinging back. I love my dad, but I know who he is, and I try to talk to him how I can talk to him. Yeah.
Does he hug you at least? Or?
Yes. You know what's crazy? My dad, I love I say he hood and kind of all tough and up. But one time he got on the phone with Reese, he's like, so you met the brother. The only nigga that he love me. The only one that they love me. And then he will hug me. He'll be like what's up, my boy?
Stay up.
Yeah. He'll hug me now. He'll be like, I love you on the phone. I had to keep saying, I love you, Pop. Love you, Pop.
Right, I know for him to say it back.
Because also, even if you not necessarily have the language, I have the language.
Right.
And I know what you need. And that, I know it feels good to hear him, for him to hear me say it, because he said it in his way. So that's how, he might not be able to give me that, but I can give him something. And in turn, like, I still have a parent that I can have a relationship with. Because I think sometimes you can't, I understand why some people, particularly queer folks, might cut off their relationships with their parents for their own well-being.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to do that, and
Right.
I don't have to. So this is the best I can do with it.
I also think sometimes, like, my dad is not like that either.
Yeah.
Like, my dad won't be like, I love you, and do those things. He'll be like, all right, and then just hang up the phone.
Yeah,
It's just weird to me. It's like, all right, see you later.
I go by what they were taught or what they weren't taught. Usually why I give my sister so much credit, because I think she's truly broken a lot of cycles with her daughters.
Okay, that's great.
And how they are and how they communicate and just the whole energy. I just admire my sister so much as a mom. So I'm glad for that. But yeah, like my dad, he wasn't really taught any of that.
Yeah, that's what I think sometimes, like the older generation, it was a lot different.
Yeah, he had it really hard. And that was what I tried to get out of my first book. Like you have to, even if it was a chaotic, troubled childhood, understanding why a person is who they are and why they do things that they do might not necessarily bring you complete peace, but it provides an understanding that I think really helps the person that's been hurt or impacted.
And another thing that you wrote, and you said this is like the hardest thing that you've had to reveal, is that you struggled sometimes with wanting to be alive.
Yes. I really didn't want to go there, but I just, how can I put, I was just being honest. I have mentioned struggling with depression my whole life, but I don't think I've ever kind of put it so plainly for some people to kind of get. But I also think, you know what, quietly a lot of Black people really young are dying from that. And they don't have a lot of, it's like people kind of always say, check on your strong friends or say this some kind of message before it's too late. So while I do make clear, like, I'm not going to harm myself, just even having the thought or just feeling like I don't have any value during those times, you know, you never know what could happen. You can slowly kill yourself another way. You're not like being as healthy as you should. It's all these different things. So I just kind of, for me, wanted to be vulnerable in that way. It was really hard, but, you know, a lot of particularly Black men are really silently struggling with that kind of thing. So that was just in my own way trying to be like, maybe it'll help somebody. Yeah,
I would think that most people at some point or another have felt like that.
Yeah, and maybe more often in the last few years than we really talk about. It's just been really hard to, sometimes, I don't think, like, I see people all the time that say that you can choose to be happy. You can choose happiness. And I get the sentiment of that. I think you can choose to want to be happy, right, but it sounds good. Like, it can be hard to be alive no matter how fortunate you or not fortunate you are. It could just generally be really hard. And I think for me to talk about how difficult life can be gives me space to talk about stuff. Maybe it'll help people, but it also gives me kind of, now that I put that out there, I can also just as much write about how much I'm fighting to enjoy life. I'm at a really like crossroads now. I'm about to turn 40 in exactly a month.
Woo, we are going to definitely celebrate that.
Yeah.
Welcome to the 40 plus club.
Yes, I want to be you when I grow up. You are still killing. But you know, I am really trying to figure out who I am now that my mom's gone. What's it like? And I mentioned in the book how hard it is to be like a Black creative, a writer, and when people are devaluing writing at an accelerated pace. So it's just, you know, I don't know what's going to come in my 40s, but I feel like it only can go up from the last few years.
Yeah, this last year you said was the worst year.
It was been the worst year of my life. I mean, it's honestly mostly just my mom, but in the backdrop of that, it was like the writer's strike, which impacted both those projects I was mentioning. Fortunately, one is still coming.
I can't wait for that. This has been in the making for...
Me too, honestly. And I can't say too much yet, but I will say with I Can't Date Jesus, it's a change, and I really welcome it. I found someone new to work with that truly believes in my voice and what I'm trying to do. So I'm hopeful. It's a really tough market, but I keep telling these execs, I'm like, look, let me make this great gay Black show that has wide appeal before it's illegal to be gay, depending on how the election goes. But
right. Hey, Texas.
Yes, Texas, they trying to turn the rest of the country into Texas. So
it's crazy because you're from Houston.
Yes.
It's so wild that Texas is like, and Florida is up there too.
Texas and Florida, yes.
Is wild for a place to be like.
Yeah, I wish more people would pay attention to Houston, which is what I will do with the show, because I'm like, if you want to know how a really diverse population can be put under some kind of authoritarian, oppressive regime, Houston is the most ethnically diverse city in the country, but who runs it? It's in Texas and Austin, and see how they're treated. And like, it's a weird time, but I love Houston. But yes, that is the preview they want for the rest of the country. I'm not going to lecture anybody to vote and wag my finger, because I get it if you don't. But
don't say that. You should definitely vote.
No, I want you to vote. I want you to vote. I just don't want to, like, I don't, because I mentioned the book too. I just feel like sometimes poor Black people get lectured to and condescended to, and their political apathy is earned, even if they might not articulate it in the way certain people would like. I think it's valid. So that was just my way of saying, I hear you if you don't want to, but I hope you do, because I don't really want to deal with that man again.
Right. Yeah. It's wild to me. Like I've been saying this. I can't believe he's even allowed to run for president with everything that he has going on, with convictions, with, you know, I feel like they got to change the laws so that you can't do that. Like,
you would think. I mean, I'm honestly kind of depressed that, like, someone who barely reads and is a obvious criminal
and says anything and lies all the time.
Yes, and a lot of Black men like him.
Well,
not a lot, a certain segment of the population.
A very vocal segment.
Yes, I would say very vocal. But just honestly, being a funny racist and a celebrity does wonders politically. My mom used to want me to run for office. I was like, they would shoot me. No, thank you.
Ooh, I could. And you've been very critical of certain people also. And you talk about it in the book.
Invited to the White House.
You haven't been invited to the White House?
No, I'm not that grand yet. I was, whatever. Hey, Kamala. Sorry, VP.
I feel like they definitely wouldn't invite you to the White House, though, because there'd be people I see that they invite, and I'm like,
Oh, wait, you know what? One time somebody did invite me.
Okay.
I actually take that back. I couldn't go. That was my fault. That was the Obama years.
They probably was like,
yes.
take him off the list.
Yes, it might have been that later. A little too vocally.
But yeah, you talk about Pete Buttigieg, you talk about Mayor Eric Adams.
Yes.
And I won't give away too much, but you guys can read all about it. And I finally bought some Jordans. But I love that you can go from talking about reality shows to politics to pop culture and all of those things. And like, even just outside of this, you're just a fun person to talk to.
I appreciate that. You know I love you.
Yes,
I came in here like, ooh, don't let me be a downer. Ooh, don't let me be a downer. But thank you for that.
But we always do have great in-depth conversations. There's been times when, and Michael, you are so funny, because you'll be like, she doesn't like me, she acts funny to me. And then I'll be like, Michael, stop. Like, because I think sometimes you could be overly sensitive to things. You think?
Who was it that didn't like me? I might have been right. I
don't want to say. I don't think you're blocked, though, from this person.
Were we in LA when this happened?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That ended well, but to be clear, I get why you might say sensitive, but that was based on a past experience and a certain look.
Okay.
That I got that felt very real, but things did change.
Okay, good.
And I also think maybe you helped with that change, because people are nicer.
I think that also sometimes, because this happened to me too. You could have a bad experience with somebody.
Yes.
And then you have to be open, though, to, it could just be a bad day. It could be anything could have been going on. You don't really know. You could have wrote something about that person.
Exactly. I will say, though, like, honestly, I actually don't enter a space thinking most people don't like me.
Okay.
I usually think I'm pretty well liked.
Yeah.
I just think, if you're Toni Braxton scrolling your feed or her social media manager and you see some tweets, you're like, nope, block. I think I will say my writing can be pretty biting.
Yeah,
so that can
because it's also very clever, and when you write something and it's clever, it also hurts more.
Yeah, but I genuinely don't aim to be mean-spirited. I'm usually only really like going at somebody that I think is like some type of bigot, crook, abuser type. Mm-hmm. It's usually like one of those. But generally, like, I like everybody. I try.
I know that you have been trying to stray away from From your journalism of writing?
Yes, get me out the ghetto.
Hire
me, but no.
People love that though.
I mean, I always would do a little bit, but like primarily, no. That's what's so mad about that strike. I was like, oh, because I mean, as the strike's happening, all of the contracts are being set on fire, whole publications are like disappearing, decades worth is just like that, just gone.
Right.
That kind of thing. I'm like, oof. I mean, and then TV is what it is. But that said, like, I just think I would work. Well, I know it. I work really well in that medium.
Yeah.
And I also just generally want to, well, you know, I grew up wanting to be a talk show host. I don't know how the writing thing I kind of fell into.
How did this all happen?
Right.
You can still do that though. I can see it.
We trying. We try. At least put me. I know people are tired of black men getting podcast mics and not toolkits. But
I told you a long time ago you need a podcast.
I'm trying.
Okay.
I would love a podcast. I want
even for your book, why not just do like a little 8 episodes and then it could turn into more? It's a good way to not be too committed.
You're right. I literally got this. You'll be proud of me. For the first time in like 4 months, I went out socially.
Mm-hmm.
Demetria Lucas, I love her. She was like, "Why don't you have a podcast already?"
Mm-hmm.
You both are good about getting me together in that way.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're so great at talking. You could do a podcast with just you talking. But I could see you interviewing people and speaking to people too.
See, I didn't think I could do it just me talking.
You could.
I didn't. That was my hang up. Because I've had situations.
Look at how Risa Tisa talked for like 3.5 hours. Just her.
I read the Cliffs Notes. That was amazing. Yes.
Yeah, not to compare that to you, but I think that's such a skill. The fact that she was able to have people enthralled for 3.5 hours of just her, like nobody else. Yes. That was wild.
That's a talent. That's a natural ability. I don't tweet as much because it can be a miserable place.
And you don't Instagram much either.
No, I'm trying. I'm trying to.
You got a book out now. You got to come back.
I've been posting. That's the only reason. Because I started to hate social media. It made me like people less. And I still want to like people. That I really wanted to like people more. So I was like, maybe less.
Why does it make you like people less?
What? You could, I don't know. I don't sound like a conspiracy or something. I feel like you can tell how much social media over years has changed people's minds and how they operate. And just knowing people personally sometimes and how they portray online.
Right.
And how the algorithm doesn't even show me people I know anymore. It's just sort of a weird space. Like even on Instagram now, I'm like, I feel like I'm at a flea market where they cook and they're showing me a lot of ass, people working out. It's just, I don't know. Like, I don't know where I'm at. So I think that part is weird. So I'm like, where do I belong in this? And then I don't want it just to be a grief journal. So what am I doing? But I'm trying to figure that out too. But like Twitter, that used to be my thing. But like, it's just it's miserable. Like even with Twitter icon, they were like, why she get signed to CAA? I'm like, well, first of all, like, have you captivated that many people just rambling about your whatever life?
Yeah.
Also,
and she took a lot of accountability for things
from what I saw.
Which I think is important. She kept being like, now I know that this is stupid, but he told me I knew he was lying.
I feel like she was very like self-deprecating that way, and people were still like upset.
And I feel like in real life, people do that all the time. Think about how many times you've been with somebody, seen all the red flags, and then made excuses and stayed.
I have written about how embarrassing I've been in the past. Yes.
We won't bring this up today because this is about I finally bought some Jordans.
Yeah, no more fleece
Let me see what you got on.
Oh, no, I didn't wear my Jordans today. I wore Air Max because we walking around.
Air Max is my thing too.
Yes.
So.
We love Air Max, but you can send Jordans, please.
And people probably assume also when you become a New York Times bestseller, they're going to think that you're just rich.
People have made that assumption. No, that didn't happen like that. I explained that in my second book, how Inspired by Left Eye, how little that can work.
Did you get any of your student loans canceled ever?
No, I have mostly private loans, and Joe was like, "Nah, y'all all right." But I will say with that book, a lot of Black people in particular are exploited for those private loans more so than other folks. It's sort of like a subprime mortgage crisis kind of thing. Honestly, all of those loans but one are paid off.
Okay. So all right. That's good. That's a good feeling.
I got some blessings with the second book, Even the Plague Year. Actually, you were helping me with work that summer when nothing was going on. I put all that money to paying off debt and all that stuff. Then inflation started choking me, so it's kind of like, where are we? But I think people confuse what titles and status means. Because, I mean, there are even people from like Euphoria talking about they can't pay their rent.
Yeah, she said she was joking, but...
Oh, that's not a good joke to say right now.
Yeah, she was like, I can't... And, you know, we saw Billy Porter's put his house on the market.
I feel like a lot of people are like 1 or 2 checks away from ruin. It just depends on how big the check is.
Right.
And instead of just kind of, not saying they are, but a lot of people kind of front about money or kind of buy into this idea like where you should be already. I'm like, no, I've actually, even when I was doing okay, or even, because my okay is still was technically better than a lot of people's. Right. But I was broke because of them loans. I think a lot of us start further behind.
That's a fact.
And we just don't talk about social mobility in like an honest way. Starting behind means you're starting behind. And how you start it doesn't mean you can't overcome it. But it takes a lot to overcome a lot of those things and like really make enough money to like be in a much better standing.
Do you think you're good with money in general?
When you give it to me, yes.
Yeah. No, I'm saying is you could get money. Some people get money and blow through it and don't have a plan. You think you're good with your finances, or is that something else that you got to work on?
Generally speaking, I'm pretty responsible with money. I know financial literacy is like a big thing. I feel a way sometimes about financial. No offense to anybody, but my thing about financial literacy is like a lot of people will be doing better if you just give them enough money to live and pay their bills. Right. And you pay the people. But I'm pretty good with money as long as you actually pay me what you should. But they are trying to chop these rates. So I'm like, get out of journalism, Michael. Get that other leg out the hood and go on and grab a podcast mic and sell TV shows and write books. Do that.
Well, I think that's a plan.
Yes.
And if you need my support, you know I'm always down. Like, if there's something I could do, I would love to. You know, just putting that out there now. So
it should not have taken me 4 years to see you. Hi, Angela.
Hi, Michael.
I've been crazy, though. Thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And make sure y'all pick up I Finally Bought Some Jordans. You guys are going to enjoy this so much. And also, there'll be parts where you'll really be touched and be able to relate. Because I know for me, I was like, oh, my God, you know, me too. And
yes. And I'm going to see you in the studio in 4 years. You got it, though. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure to see you. And I will see you when I come to L.A. soon.
Yes, you will.
All right.
I'll be back.
It's way up.